Which club is James Maddison going to be at next season? Leicester City relegated, so most people anticipate that he's going to move on. Do we think that he's going to go to Tottenham or Newcastle United? And which would be the better option for him?
Well, from a footballing point of view, the obvious answer would be Newcastle because they're in the Champions League and they're on the ascendancy. If I was him, I'd be talking to both managers, obviously, and really trying to nail down where they think he's going to play, because the way Eddie Howe's set up this Newcastle side and the way I see them moving forward and staying on that same trajectory is not with James Maddison, even though he's a super player who I admire, because he plays three in the middle of the pitch, a bit like early, when Klopp first got that, when Coutinho went, three athletes in the middle of the pitch who can play, but who just box to box. They press, they get back, they spot danger, they play high tempo, and he has three up front who win him the game with the odd addition of a fullback.
Could he not play as one of those three wide? Well, one of those two wide then?
He could. Yeah, he could. But I don't think that's his best position. But yeah, he could.
But he wouldn't want to go there under that premise, would he? He'd want to, as players, you want to play in your best positions, don't you?
It depends what he thinks his best position is. He might be so super.
Spurs?
Well, Spurs could build a team around him. They could play. It depends. He could play as a 10, and then you work what you've got around. You have two holding midfielders. You could. Tottenham are in such a transition, really, and depends what happens with Kane. I mean, again, he's high tempo though. Maddison would have to really work hard at his defensive side of the game, because it's one. He's got better at it. But it's one aspect of his game he's lacking. The only aspect of his game he's lacking in, because he is super creative, super technician, game intelligent.
But if you want to play in a top team now, then high intensity is going to be part of it.
Part of it, yeah. And he might be willing to do that. But I think the thing to do, well, you don't make a choice to do it. It's something that's put up. You grow into it. But I think if he goes to Newcastle, he'd have to play wide. Unless Eddie Howe, which I cannot see, completely changes.
See, I think he's a decent player. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's quite the player that people think he is. But I've sat across the room from Danny and from Graeme Souness, who've both been top midfield players, who say the same thing, that they think he's top draw. And so with that in mind, I don't push back against the notion that James Maddison is a top draw player. And I think going to either club, he has an embarrassment of riches. If both of these two clubs are in for him, and according to Daniel Levy last week, they weren't for James Maddison, then
he told you that.
Yeah. Then you've got a situation where, if that is the case, certainly at the level that was being reported in the media anyway,
right.
If that is the case, then you've got two managers that I would think were both good managers to play for. You've got two football clubs. One of them that's got a slightly toxic fan base and needs a rebuild. One of them that's in really good nick. You've got the potential of the boy Bruno Guimaraes that people are looking at, and maybe he's going to get taken out of Newcastle.
He's just signed a new deal.
Has he signed a new deal? Okay, because there was allegations about him potentially going to Barcelona, wasn't there? If he signed a new deal,
they've just made him the best paid player.
Fantastic, good for them. Great, they've got that one nailed down.
Cracking player.
I think either one of those clubs is a good fit for James. I think both of them have their pluses and their minuses. And I think that Tottenham may well be where he lands.
Yeah, and I think that's where he'd be a star, because they want to be lifted. They want to be entertained. They want a new hero.
He's one of the very few players. In fact, I think Bukayo Saka was the only player who got double figures assists and goals last season in the Premier League, and he was one away from joining that club. Bearing in mind he's part of a relegated team, that's quite an impressive statistic.
Madison's numbers will always be high because he's so creative and so brave on the ball. He's a wonderful technician who takes risks, and he does not mind failing. That means that's why he'll get.
Do you get the impression he's got? I mean, I know that he's done recent interviews where he's been good and bad in interviews, and some of the things that he's said, and again, context is everything.
Yeah.
When he talked about people not being assets, and then he said, then he had to qualify it later on by saying, people winning their jewels, people being, hang on, isn't that the very definition of being assets? Do you think he's got the temperament and character to take the next step from Leicester City being relegated to a club with high expectations? Tottenham fans expect their team to be winning things and to be in the top four. Newcastle are becoming acclimatised to that. Do you think he's got the character set, albeit you may not know him, but looking from the outside in with an educated eye, do you think he's got the chops for that job?
Well, if I was Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, I wouldn't take the risk.
Well, there's your answer then.
Well, because although he's got all those wonderful attributes you said, I've not seen enough of that. that fire in the belly. Now, he's not a tackler. He's not going to go into 50-50 tackles. And he cares, but...
Do you think he's hampered by the reputation that he's garnered when he was left out the England squad and he popped up in a casino, for example?
No, I just think when you watch footballers, he's aesthetically pleasing, he's technically brilliant, and he'll always make things happen and get people off the seat. But does he have the capability of nailing down one position and being a... So, I'll give you an example, and I think it's a fair one, and I'm not saying he's better or worse. Bernardo Silva is somebody who has these wonderful technical attributes, who can score great goals and play great passes and beat people. But you never ever question his tenacity to win balls back, to press, to run back. Hence the fact last year he played instead of Gundogan next to Rodri in a central midfield position and they still won the league. Right? So can he raise his game to have all those wonderful qualities? Mane's a good example of someone. Mane, great qualities going forward, but never ever worry about him doing the physical work, pressing you, running back, winning it. You don't have to be the biggest, strongest player. Can Maddison do that? I've not seen it yet. And I hope he surprises me. But if I was the top teams, that's why we're talking about Tottenham and Newcastle. Because they're not Man City and Liverpool.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that will be more apparent in the fullness of time. Tottenham and Newcastle both looking at James Maddison. He will certainly move. I'm sure Harvey Barnes will be part of a discussion as well.
Why? Why do people keep saying that?
Well, because I think
he's flattered to deceive this. He's got wonderful ability again.
Well, he's top goal scorer for Leicester City this season, wasn't he?
How many did he get?
I think it was 15 goals.
Did he?
Yeah, in all competitions.
Well, I'll take it back then. I didn't realise he scored that many. But the games I saw, I wasn't that impressed. His end product hasn't been as good when I've seen him. But fair enough. I think you got that wrong. 15 goals.
We'll check it out. Was you saying he's a championship player, are you?
No, but you're talking about top teams. He might get a Premier League move. But...
I didn't say top teams. I said I think he'll be moving after they're relegated.
I thought you were talking about the big teams.
Well, you didn't expect him to go to Manchester City or someone like that, did you?
No.
14 goals this season. 13 goals this season. There you go.
I'm in a Prem.
Give me 3 minutes and I'll tell you. This is talkSPORT.